So what we're having a look here is some more solving when our quadratic trinomial equals 0, or when we've got something like this. It's a little bit more involved. It's no harder. There's like 2 extra steps, if that. So over here, we've got x squared plus 5x minus 14. First thing we try to do is we see if we can apply the null factor rule or the null factor law, which, as we mentioned previously, if we've got a times b and that equals 0, we imply that a equals 0 or that b equals 0. So what we're going to try and do, we're going to try to factorise this thing, so we end up with something times something else equals 0. So we're looking for factor pairs of negative 14 to add up to positive 5. Well, I know it's going to be negative 2 and 7. So we're going to say plus 7, negative 2. So I've done this over and over again. I've gotten really good at it. I don't have to work it all out every time. I know that two numbers that multiply to make negative 14, add to make up a 5, positive 7 minus 2. So that's what I'm going to put x and x. So now what we're doing is we're saying x plus 7 times x minus 2 equals 0. So from there, x plus 7 has got to equal 0. So we imply that x equals negative 7. And if x minus 2 equals 0, we can imply, also it should be 0, we can imply that x equals 2. And that's that one done. Now, if we've got something like this, where we don't have it equaling 0, we've got to bring this thing over to the other side, and we've got to expand this so that we can then convert it to this, so we can apply our null factor law. Right now what we're saying is some number times by some number plus 2, or that same number plus 2 gives us 15. Hopefully you can see that it's 3 and 5. Just based on that and a bit of trial and error, you probably worked it out. But it's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to develop trial and error skills here. We're trying to develop algebraic skills. So like I said, first thing we're going to do is we're going to expand this. So x times x, we end up with x squared. X times 2, we end up with plus 2x. And that still equals 15. So then from there, we're going to move this 15 over to the other side, so it has to become negative 15. So x squared, or we're subtracting 15 from both sides, plus 2x minus 15. 15 minus 15 is 0. So we've got 0. And then we're going to look for factors of negative, or factor pairs of negative 15 to add up to positive 2. Like I said, because I've done these over and over and over again, I know that it's going to be x plus 3, x plus 5, and x minus 3. Plus 5, if we add 5 and negative 3, we'll end up with positive 2. If we multiply 5 and negative 3, we'll end up with negative 15. That still equals 0. So from there, we can imply that x has to equal negative 5, or that x has to equal 3. And that's it. Done and dusted. That's where we go about solving quadratic trinomials using a null factor law. So, regardless of what our factors are, regardless of what our terms are, we want to factorise. Let it equal, if it already equals 0, factorise, let it equal 0, then we solve. If it doesn't equal 0, we do what we have to on the left-hand side. In this case, we have to expand. We may have just been able to transpose that. But we do what we have to on the left-hand side, bring that over to the left-hand side. So we have a 0, factorise, and find our answer. But that's how we solve for x with quadratic trinomials.